They sat me at the back of the observation tier like a guest who had wandered in from the wrong corridor. And for the first hour, that is exactly what I was. The Iskar build tall. Not tall the way a man is tall, but tall the way a crane is tall, a blue-black column of jointed chitin that folds and unfolds, 4 working limbs and 2 more held close to the thorax like a promise they haven't decided to keep. Their heads are narrow and their eyes are the color of old oil, faceted, and when they look at you the light moves across those facets in a slow ripple so you can never be sure which part of you they are studying. They smelled the room before they saw it. I learned that later. When I came up the ramp into the seminary hall, the nearest of them turned its head a fraction, and its mandibles ticked once, a dry click, and I understood I had been catalogued by scent before I had said a word. The hall was called the Winnowing Floor. It was a drum of gray composite 200 meters across, ringed by tiers, and the air in it was kept dry and cold the way you keep a warehouse cold, not for comfort, for preservation. Below us the floor was not a floor. It was a machine folded flat. I could see the seams of it, the long recess tracks, the ports where things would rise or drop or open. I have stood in a lot of rooms built to hurt people. You learn the shape of them. This one had been built to hurt a great many people over a very long time, and it had the patience of a thing that had never once failed at its work. The Iskar who came to collect me was called Instructor Prime Osikhthrel. He wore no armor because he was past the age of needing to prove he could. His chitin had gone matte with the years, and there was a repair seam across his left forelimb, a paler ridge where something had once taken the limb off, and the limb had been grown back. He looked at me the way you look at a chair someone has left in a doorway. "You are the human," he said. The translator gave me the words a half-beat behind the click and rasp of his real speech, so that everything he said arrived twice, once as sound and once as meaning, and the two never quite lined up. "Corporal Wren Halstead," I said. "Second Expeditionary, I'm told I'm your guest." "You are told correctly." His head tilted, that slow ripple across the eyes. "The compact requires we host one of your kind through a cycle of instruction, a gesture, your people asked to observe the winnowing. A pause I would come to know very well, the pause an Iskar makes when it is being courteous about something it finds absurd. You will observe it from here. I will not seat a guest into it. That would be discourteous. The winnowing is not a demonstration. It is where we decide which of our young are permitted to live as soldiers, and which are not." "I read the brief," I said. "Then you read that it takes some of them." He said it flatly, no weight on it, the way you'd note that a machine consumes fuel. "Every cycle. We do not soften it. A soldier softened by a soft trial dies in a real one and takes others with him, so we keep it hard. Do you understand what you will watch, human?" "I think so." "You do not. There was no heat in it, he simply believed it. You are a warm thing from a warm place. You will watch and you will be upset and you will file a report that says the Iskar are cruel to their young. That is the report every soft species files. I have read 40 years of them." The oil-slick eyes rippled. "Sit. Be upset quietly. We begin at the third bell." I said, "I want to be fair to Osikhthrel, because a lot of what came after has been told badly, and in the bad tellings he is a fool. He was not a fool. He was the finest instructor of the finest war college of a species that had been surviving hard places for longer than mine had been walking upright, and everything he believed about me was reasonable given what he knew. He knew the compact species. He knew the Viharn, who are strong and slow. He knew the Selu, who are quick and brittle. He knew a dozen kinds of soldier, and he had a true and tested map of what a body could and could not do. And on that map there was no room for what I was, because the thing I was had never once walked into his hall. His error was not stupidity. His error was that his map was complete, and complete maps are the most dangerous thing a careful person can own, because they stop looking at the edges. I sat and I watched them bring the cadets in. There were 60 of them that cycle. Young Iskar are paler than old ones, a bright hard blue, and they came onto the winnowing floor in a column, unhurried, the way well-trained young move when they are frightened and have decided the fear is a private matter. I respected that. I have seen a lot of frightened young people and most of them make noise. These made none. They took their positions across the floor in a grid, 60 of them, and above them the drum of the hall went quiet, and the machine that was pretending to be a floor woke up. I will tell you what the winnowing is, because you have to understand it to understand what happened, and because the reports have made it sound like a spectacle, and it was not a spectacle. It was arithmetic dressed as a room. The floor divides into rungs. Each rung is a band of the drum, concentric, and each band is a different way to fail. The outer band throws mass at you, pistons, sweeps, a wall of composite arms that come up out of the seams and move faster than a body should be able to read, and you learn the pattern or the pattern removes you. The next band is thermal. They vent the floor. Not fire, the Iskar do not use fire. It frightens their own instincts, but heat ingouts from the seams, so that the floor becomes a grid of safe and unsafe, and the safe squares change on a count you have to keep in your head while the mass arms are still coming. The third band is low oxygen, a bowl of thin dead air where the vents pull the atmosphere down and you have to cross it while your body screams that it is drowning. The fourth is the pressure band. The fifth I will come to. And at the center, past all of it, is the pillar. A single spire you must reach and set your hand to and hold for a count of 100 while the machine spends everything it has left trying to take you off it. 60 cadets went onto the floor. The machine woke, and I stopped thinking of Osicthrel as courteous or discourteous, because I was watching young people work against a thing that did not care about them at all, and there is a kind of attention that clears everything else out of you. The first band took 11 of them in the first 2 minutes. Not killed, the Iskar are not wasteful. There are catchment fields. A cadet who fails is pulled out of the floor by a suppression net and dropped into a recovery pit, and most of them live. But most is doing work in that sentence. I watched a pale blue cadet read the mass arm pattern a fraction slow, and the sweep took him across the thorax, and the sound it made was not a sound a living thing should make and then survive, and the net had him and pulled him down and the floor closed over the pit and the trial did not pause for him. It does not pause. That is the point of it. The world does not pause. Osicthrel did not look at me. He was watching his cadets, but I saw the small tension in the held close limbs against his thorax, and I understood that he felt every one of those failures and that his cruelty and his grief were the same thing, and I stopped being upset the way he had predicted I would be. I was something else. I was doing math. Because that is what you do if you are what I am, and you have spent your life in hard places. You do not watch a thing like the winnowing and feel. You watch it and you count. 11 gone in the first band. The mass arms move on a 9 count with a false beat on the 5th. The thermal grid changes on a 7 count that resets whenever a cadet crosses a seam, which is a cruelty layered on a cruelty, because it means the safe squares are not the same for the second cadet as the first. The low oxygen bowl is 40 meters across and the vents pull hardest at the center, so the fast crossing and the safe crossing are not the same crossing and you have to choose. I counted. I did not decide to count. It is simply what happens behind my eyes when I watch a machine try to kill people. My grandmother was the same. It is not courage. Courage is a thing you feel. This is the absence of a thing. The trial ran for 40 minutes. Of 60 cadets, 12 reached the pillar. Of those 12, 7 held the full count. The other 5 came off it in the last band, the 5th band, which I had not understood until I saw it work, and which I will tell you about now. The 5th band is the one the Iskar are quiet about. The mass, the heat, the thin air, the pressure, those are hardships and any soldier trains against hardship. The 5th band is not a hardship. The 5th band is a choice. When you cross into it, the machine gives you a way out. A door opens in the floor, a lit and easy door, and through it is the recovery pit, the warm net, the end of the pain, and all you have to do is take one step to the side and it is over and no one will fault you. The machine says, "You have come so far. No one expected you to come this far. Step aside." And it says this while the pressure band is crushing you and the pillar is still 40 meters away. And it says it in the cadet's own inner voice, because the Iskar have learned how to route the offer through the nervous system so that it does not feel like an offer. It feels like your own good sense. 5 of the 12 took the door. They were not cowards. They were the second-best soldiers on that floor, and the machine found the exact edge of them and opened it, and they stepped through their own reasonableness into the pit, and the floor closed, and they will carry it the rest of their lives. I understood then why 40 years of soft species had filed reports calling the Iskar cruel, and I understood why the Iskar had kept the trial exactly as hard as it was, and would keep it that way until their sun went out. Both of those understandings were correct at once. That is the kind of place the galaxy is. 7 cadets held the pillar. The hall gave them nothing, no cheer. The Iskar do not cheer. But the held closed limbs came away from 100 thoraxes in the tiers at once, a small unfolding, the Iskar way of letting a held breath go, and I felt the room change temperature by the fact of 7 young people being permitted to live as soldiers. Ossik Threll turned to me then. The old slick eyes rippled. "You did not look away," he said. There was something in it that was not quite surprise, a recalibration small, the first grain of it. The soft species look away. "No," I said, "I was counting." "Counting what?" "The 9 count on the mass arms, the false 5th beat, the 7 count on the thermal grid that resets on the seams, the vent pull on the bowl, the pressure gradient, the door." I said it flat the way you read back a supply manifest. "The door's the clever part. You route it through the vestibular loop, don't you? That's why it doesn't feel like a door. It feels like balance. It feels like the sensible thing your own body is telling you." The pause, the long Iskar pause, but it was a different pause than before. Before, it had been the pause of a patient adult being courteous to a child. This one had a different shape. "The offer," he said slowly, "is not published. It is not in the brief your people were given. Cadets who take the door are not permitted to describe it, and cadets who hold the pillar do not describe it either, out of respect for the ones who did not. How do you know the door routes through balance?" "Because that's where I'd put it," I said. "If I built a machine to find the exact edge of a person, I'd stop attacking the body and start attacking the part of the body that decides. And the fastest way into the deciding part is through the part that keeps you upright, because a body will listen to that before it listens to anything else. It's older than reason. You put your quit button downstream of reason, where reason can't argue with it." I shrugged. "It is a human gesture and it does not translate," and I saw his eyes ripple trying to read it. "It's a good machine. Whoever built it understood people. I'd like to meet them." "She has been dead 400 years, Ossik Threll said, and I have thought a great deal since about the fact that in that moment he answered me as an equal, told me a true thing about his people's history, without deciding to. It came out of him because I had said a thing that made me, for one sentence, a person he was talking to instead of a guest he was hosting. Then he remembered what I was, and the guard came back down. "You understand the trial intellectually," he said. "That is not nothing. Your kind are clever, we have always granted that. But understanding a knife and standing in front of one are different acts. You watched 60 of the finest young of a war-hard people go onto that floor, and 40 of them did not reach the center, and 11 are in the medical wing, and 2 will not train again. And you counted." The mandibles ticked. "I will say to you what I say to the parents of the ones who do not hold. The floor is honest. It asks a true question. Most true questions have a hard answer." "It is honest," I agreed. "Then observe the rest of the cycle from here, human, and file your report, and we will part as the compact requires, courteously." He began to turn away. "You have seen the hardest thing my hall does. There is nothing more here for you to count." I should have let him turn. I want to be clear that I know that. There was no order that required me to speak. There was no advantage to my people in what I did next. I have turned it over many times and I cannot find the reason in it except the true one, which is small and not to my credit, and I will give it to you plainly. I was tired of being hosted. I had been a warm thing from a warm place for 6 days, seated at the back of every room, spoken to slowly, and I was tired of it in the low, patient, unheated way you get tired of a stone in your boot. It is not a noble reason. It is the reason. Instructor Prime, I said, seat me into it. He stopped. The tiers had begun to empty, the surviving cadets being taken down for the afterwork the Iskar do, and at my words the nearest few instructors went still, and the stillness moved outward through the hall the way it does when a room realizes something is about to be either very stupid or very interesting, and does not yet know which. Osikthrel came back around to face me, all four working limbs settled. The held-closed pair came away from his thorax, not a breath let go this time, but the opposite, a readiness. No, he said. You said the winnowing is where you decide which of your young may live as soldiers. I kept my voice level. It is not a hard thing for me to keep my voice level. It is the natural resting state of it. I'm a soldier. I asked to observe. I've observed. Now I'm asking to be measured by the same question you measure them by. You said the floor is honest and asks a true question, so let it ask me. You are a guest. Then stop hosting me and answer me. The pause, the longest one yet, and in it I watched Osikthrel do the thing that made him the finest instructor of his generation, which was that he took me seriously enough to be angry. You do not understand what you are asking, he said, and now there was heat in it, the first heat, and it was not contempt, it was something closer to grief arriving early. You saw the floor take Iskar, war-caste Iskar, chitin, reserve limbs, nervous systems bred for load across 900 generations of a world that kills the slow. You are a soft thing. You have no chitin. You have no reserve limbs. Your bones are calcium sticks in a bag of water. The mass arms will not net you and drop you into a pit, human. They will break you across the middle, and the net will pull a broken thing down, and I will spend the next year of my life explaining to your compact and mine why I put a guest onto a floor that was never built for her body. I will not do it. I refuse you not to insult you. I refuse you to keep you alive. It was, I want to say clearly, a kind refusal. It was the refusal of a decent person. Everything he said was true about a Viharn, about a Selu, about a dozen kinds of soldier he had known. It was true about every body he had ever put on that floor. His map was complete. He was standing at the edge of it, refusing me out of the goodness that a complete map allows a person, and he could not see the one thing the map did not hold, which was standing in front of him asking to be let onto the floor. So I told him the thing. I did not say it to frighten him. I said it because it was the answer to his objection, the way a manifest answers a question about supply. Instructor Prime, I said, do you know what my world is registered as in your records? Your people keep a register of worlds. Where they've been, what came off them. My world is in it. Do you know the entry? His eyes rippled. The register is not my discipline. I train soldiers. I do not read star charts. It's registered as Null, I said. Register Null. You have a scale for how much a world tries to kill the things that grow on it, and my world went off the top of your scale, and rather than give it a number you gave it a word, and the word means the arithmetic didn't hold. It means your careful people looked at where I come from and put down their instruments and wrote a word instead of a figure, because the figure would not have been believed. I said it without weight. It does not need weight. You bred your cadets across 900 generations of a world that kills the slow. Instructor Prime. So did I. That's not a boast. That's just the entry. Everything that could not do the arithmetic your floor asks is not in my ancestry, because my world spent 4 billion years running the winnowing on everything that ever tried to live there, and the only things it let keep breeding were the ones that could already do the math in their sleep. I looked at the drum of the hall, the folded machine, the honest floor. Your floor asks a hard, true question. I'm telling you the question isn't new to me. My grandmother asked it of a mountain. It's the family trade. The hall was entirely silent now. The instructors were not moving. Somewhere in the tiers, a cadet who should have been taken down for afterwork had stopped on the ramp to listen, and no one had made her go. Threll looked at me for a long time. The oil-slick eyes moved across me, all of me, the way they had when I first came up the ramp, cataloging me by more than sight. And I understood that he was smelling the room again. Smelling me. Whatever an Iskar reads in the air off a body that is telling the truth, he was reading it, and it was not lining up with the warm, soft thing his map insisted I was. "You believe what you are saying," he said. It was not a question. It was a data point said aloud. "I know what I'm saying. Those are different. Not on my world they aren't. On my world, believing a wrong thing about the ground gets sorted out fast." I let a beat go by. "Seat me into it. If your floor is honest, it doesn't care what I'm made of. It asks its question. I'll answer it or it'll take me. Either way, you get a truer report than the one you've read 40 times." He should have said no again. A wiser administrator would have. But Threll was not in the end an administrator. He was a man who had given his life to a single true question, and someone had just walked into his hall and told him, without heat and without fear, that they came from a place that had been asking that question longer than his species had been alive, and every disciplined instinct he owned was telling him it might be true, and the only way to know was to let the floor ask. "One rung," he said. "The outer band, the mass arms. If you clear it, we speak again. If you falter, the net takes you and you go home, and I file that I permitted a controlled folly and we never speak of the rest." The mandibles ticked hard. "You do not touch the thermal grid. You do not touch the door. Those I do not offer, human, and you will not ask, because if you take the door I cannot untake it for you, and I will not have that on my hall. One band. Yes. One band," I said, and stood and took off my jacket and folded it over the rail, because it is a good jacket and I did not want to have to replace it. They cleared the outer band and reset it, and I walked down the ramp onto the winnowing floor of the Iskar Combat Seminary at Vault Koruth, the first human ever to stand on it. And I was not afraid, and I want to be honest that the absence of fear is not a virtue, and I have never pretended it was. It is simply the shape I come in. My people are frightened of a great many things. We are frightened of small rooms and of debt, and of what our children think of us, and of the dark when we are alone in it. We are not, as a rule, frightened of a machine that moves on a 9 count with a false beat on the 5th, because a machine that moves on a count is a machine that has told you how to survive it, and you would have to be a strange kind of animal to fear a thing that has handed you its own answer. The mass arms woke. I had been counting them for 40 minutes from the tier, and my body had learned the count before my mind had finished admitting it, the way you learn a tide. The first sweep came up out of the seam, and I was already not where it was going to be, and the second came on the false 5th beat that had taken the pale blue cadet across the thorax, and I stepped inside it close, because the arms are built to hit a body at the reach of an Iskar limb, and a human is smaller and can live in the gap the machine leaves for its own kind. That was the thing Threll's map did not hold. The floor was calibrated to a body a full head taller than mine, with a reach a half-meter longer, and every safe margin the Iskar had learned to thread was, for me, not a margin at all but an open room. I did not clear the outer band the way a cadet clears it, by matching the machine's speed. I cleared it by being small enough to live in the places the machine had never been asked to reach. It took 11 seconds. I did not hurry. Hurrying is how you die on a floor like that. Hurrying is the machine's friend. I walked it the way you walk a familiar dark stair, and the mass arms swept the air where an Iskar would have been, and I was under them and inside them and past them, and I stepped off the outer band onto the still ground of the second, and turned around and looked back at the arms still sweeping their honest, patient pattern at nothing, and I put my hands in my pockets, because it was cold on that floor, and I waited to be told I could go home. The hall did not make a sound. The Iskar do not cheer. But it did not make the small unfolding either, the letting go of breath. It made nothing, and the nothing had a pressure to it, the pressure of a great many careful people revising a complete map at the same time and finding it does not want to be revised, finding the revision costs something, finding they will pay it anyway because they are honest, and the floor is honest, and honesty has a price, and they have always paid it. Osik came down the ramp. He came all the way down onto the floor, which I would learn instructors do not do. The floor is for cadets, and he stood in front of me at the edge of the second band with the mass arms still sweeping behind me, and the oil-slick eyes rippled and did not settle. "You did not match the count," he said. "You went inside it." "There's a lot of room in there," I said. "For me, it's built for you." For 900 generations we have taught cadets to survive the outer band by reading it faster. The mandibles ticked slow. It did not occur to us to teach them to be smaller. It could not occur to us. We cannot be smaller. He said it and I heard him hear it, heard the whole shape of a thing arrive in him at once, the way it does that the trial he had given his life to was honest and hard and true, and had been asking one particular question for 900 generations, and had never once thought to ask a different one, because it had never met a body that would answer differently. "You are telling me," he said slowly, "that your floor asked you a question my floor does not know how to ask." "I'm telling you your floor's a good floor," I said. "It's the best built honest thing I've seen off my own world, and I cleared its worst band in 11 seconds because it was built by people who could only imagine one kind of hard, and where I come from, hard has a lot of kinds." I looked at the mass arms, sweeping. "You asked me before if I understood what I'd watch. I said I thought so. You said I didn't." I looked back at him. "You were right, I didn't. I do now. I watched 40 of your young break against a machine that only knows how to be tall, and it broke them fairly, and it would break me if I stood where they stood and moved how they move. So I didn't stand there. That's the whole trick, Instructor Prime. That's the only thing my world teaches that yours doesn't. It teaches you that the ground doesn't care how you were supposed to cross it." There is a version of this where I stopped there. I have wished since that I had. It would have been the courteous version, and Osik had earned courtesy, and the report would have been cleaner. But I told you the true reason I walked onto the floor, and the true reason has a second half, and the second half is this. When you have spent 6 days being hosted, and you finally get to answer the question you were told you could only watch, one clean answer is not enough. You want the machine to know you weren't guessing. You want to run it again to prove the first time wasn't luck, because on my world luck is the thing that gets your family a smaller entry in the register, and we do not trust it, and we do not let it stand. "Reset it," I said. "I'll go again." Osik went still in the way I had learned, meant an Iskar was choosing its next words the way you choose a footing on ice. "You cleared the band," he said. "You have nothing to prove." "I've got one thing to prove," I said, "that it wasn't the machine having a slow day. Reset it. Same band. I'll go again and it'll be 11 seconds again, and then you'll have a real number for your report instead of one clean run you can tell yourself was luck." I met the rippling eyes and held them, which the Iskar find hard because their eyes do not hold, they move. "I'm not doing it to shame your hall. I've got no quarrel with your hall. I'm doing it because where I'm from you don't get to believe a thing you only did once. Run it twice. That's the family rule. That's the actual rule, Instructor Prime. That's the one thing under all the other things. You run it twice because the first time might be the world being generous, and the world is never generous, so if it works twice, it's real." For a long moment he said nothing. The mass arms swept. The cadet who had stopped on the ramp was still there, unmoving, and I understood that she would carry this into a war-caste that would carry it for 900 generations more. That the thing happening on this floor was going to become a thing Iskar instructors said to Iskar cadets long after every person in this hall was dust. The ground does not care how you were supposed to cross it. A whole people's map, standing at its own edge, being asked by a small soft thing to look past it. Osik turned his head to the cadet on the ramp. "Reset the outer band," he said. And then, quieter to me, in the register the translator gave me a half-beat late so that I heard it twice, once as sound and once as meaning, and this time the two lined up exactly. "I have hosted many guests, human. I have never had one asked to be measured. I did not know until you asked that hosting was a way of refusing to measure someone. That is a thing I will have to sit with. The oil-slick eyes settled for the first time and held mine, which I have since been told an Iskar cannot do, which they simply cannot do, and he did it. Go again. And when you are done, you will take a true report to your people, and I will take a truer one to mine, and both of them will begin with the same sentence. What sentence? I said. The mass arms reset. The band woke. Somewhere above us, the whole hall of the finest war college of the oldest hard people I had ever met went silent to watch a human do a small thing twice, on purpose, to prove the first time had not been a gift. That the register was right, said Ossicthrell, and that we had all been reading it as a warning when it was only ever a fact. I stepped back onto the outer band. It took 11 seconds the second time as well.